we're going to take a look at one of the things we can do to optimize these maps and run them a little better. So at this point, you should have your main map pretty well established, and you should be starting to get quite a bit of brushes and surfaces inside your map. So what we're going to do today is actually pretty simple but very important for optimizing the map and making it run better. You may have started to notice some slowdowns as you add more and more and more things. So one of the simplest but most important things we can do is we can cover unseen surfaces with the texture no draw. And what this does is it prevents the game from attempting to render these surfaces that can't be seen by the player. And when we have to render a surface, it has to load the textures into the memory, and every surface that can be seen is a little tiny bit of performance taken away from the game. And so as you can see in this map, this is the train station 01 map from their samples, and you can see a lot of no draw here on this map, and including on the outside of the skybox. Okay, so because if you think about it, the inside of the skybox can be seen, but the outside of the skybox over here cannot be seen. So it's a good idea, like you can see that one off there in the distance is completely done with no draw on the outside. Now I don't know why Valve chose to not do the entire thing here, but if we go on the inside, they did a pretty good job of covering this. So the player is down here, and you can see from the player's perspective everything looks pretty normal. But if we fly up in the air, we can see the no draw is on the tops of all the buildings, the back sides of a lot of these walls. Anything that the player cannot see is going to get marked as a no draw. Okay, so for today, as you're working on your map, what I would like you to do is go ahead and apply no draw to any surface that the player can't see, and this includes things like the bottom of some of the stuff on the floor. Like we can come over here and we can see this is the ground, but if I just barely pop into the underground here, you can see that they've gone through and they've done no draw on all of these surfaces here that the player can't see. And what this does is it helps with performance, because now the game is not going to try and render all this extra stuff that doesn't need to be seen. So if we look around, there's going to be no draw just everywhere throughout this map. Now you do have to be careful, because no draw will be invisible to the player. So we want to make sure that when we put the no draw on a surface, that there's no chance that the player is going to see it. So as you go through here, I think this is a screen, yeah. So when you go through to do this, you got to make sure that like this is the bottom side of this rail right here, but on the top side it's no draw. All this building stuff, the player can see it from down here. Everything looks good. On the top side, you can see all the sides of these buildings, the backs, the tops, the roof that the player will never see. All this stuff is done with no draw. All right, and like I said, including the outside of your skybox. So your assignment today is to start putting no draw on the back sides and the bottoms and the outsides of areas that the player can't see. A trick that some people will use is when they create a brush, they'll actually create it with no draw, and then they will only put the actual material on the surface that the player can see. All right, so that's it for today.